When I first came across Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I didn't expect a story. I expected a finance manual. But what Robert Kiyosaki wrote was more than a book about money. It was a mirror of how we think about wealth, fear, and opportunity. It's the story of two fathers. One, educated, intelligent, and respected, believed in security and stability. The other, less educated in school, but rich in financial wisdom, believed in risk, learning, and freedom. And between them stood a child, listening, absorbing, and choosing what kind of person he would become. The two voices that shape our lives. Kiyosaki calls them Rich Dad and Poor Dad. His real father, the Poor Dad, taught him, go to school, get good grades, and find a safe job. It sounds like wisdom, but it's also the mindset that keeps many people trapped. Poor Dad valued formal education, the kind that teaches you how to work for money. Rich Dad, his friend's father, taught something entirely different. Don't work for money, make money work for you. He believed that financial education mattered more than academic success, and that understanding how money moves was the real skill behind freedom. That contrast between security and opportunity became the foundation of everything Kiyosaki learned. Lesson 1. The rich don't work for money. As a young boy, Kiyosaki and his friend Mike worked for Rich Dad for just 10 cents an hour. Soon, Kiyosaki grew frustrated. He felt exploited. When he complained, Rich Dad smiled and said, now you know how most people feel. The moment life pushes them, they look for security, not opportunity. That was the first lesson. Rich Dad wasn't teaching him to value the wage. He was teaching him to see how emotions controlled decisions. Fear of being broke and desire for comfort are what keep people running in circles, working harder, earning more, but never truly free. It's not money that controls us. It's our reaction to it. Lesson 2. Learn to make money work for you. Most people spend their lives working for others, for companies, governments, banks. They earn money, they spend it, and they repeat the cycle. Rich Dad explained the concept of assets and liabilities, the cornerstone of financial independence. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. Most people confuse the two. They buy a new car and call it an investment. They buy a house and say, it's my biggest asset. But if that house costs you more than it gives, it's not an asset. Wealthy people focus on building assets that generate income, rental properties, dividends, businesses, royalties, things that work even when they sleep. That's why, as Rich Dad said, the rich get richer, not because they work harder, but because they think differently. Lesson 3. Financial education is the real wealth. Poor Dad had degrees, but struggled financially. Rich Dad never finished high school, but built an empire. The difference wasn't intelligence, it was financial literacy. Kiyosaki reminds us that schools rarely teach how money works. We learn history, math, and grammar, but not how to read a financial statement or manage cash flow. So most adults grow up financially blind, working for decades, paying bills, and hoping retirement will take care of itself. But Rich Dad taught that money is a game, and like every game, you need to understand the rules to win. If you don't, someone else, an employer, a government, a lender, will always make the rules for you. Lesson 4. The power of corporations. Rich Dad opened Kiyosaki's eyes to something few people see. The rich don't just earn money, they structure it differently. Through corporations, they pay fewer taxes, protect assets, and multiply wealth legally. For example, an employee earns, pays taxes, and then spends what's left. But a business owner earns, spends first, and pays taxes on what remains. That's the essence of financial intelligence. Not just how much you make, but how you manage what you keep. Rich Dad often said, you must learn how to use the system, not be used by it. Lesson 5. Work to learn, not to earn. After graduating, Kiyosaki joined companies not for the paycheck, but to learn specific skills. He worked in sales to learn communication, in marketing to understand branding, and later in investment to understand money flow. Each job was a classroom. Rich Dad told him, don't climb the corporate ladder. Learn how the ladder is built. That single shift from earning to learning is what separates growth from stagnation. Because true education never ends, it just changes form. Lesson 6. Overcoming the fear of losing. One of the most powerful messages in the book is about fear. People stay broke not because they lack opportunity, but because they fear losing. They fear criticism. They fear mistakes. They fear risk. But Rich Dad taught, failure inspires winners. Failure defeats losers. Every investor, entrepreneur, or creator knows this truth. Mistakes aren't the end, they're tuition. The world rewards those who dare to act, not those who wait for guarantees. Kiyosaki himself failed multiple times before finding success, but each loss refined his understanding of money and himself. Lesson 8. The rich invent money. Rich Dad believed that opportunities aren't found, they're created. While others wait for good jobs, the rich look for gaps, patterns, and needs. They see money in ideas, not just in salaries. When the economy shifts, most people panic, but those who are financially educated see potential in real estate, in markets, in innovation. As Rich Dad said, it's not the economy that makes you rich, it's your mindset. Lesson 9. Mind your own business. Most people spend their lives building someone else's dream. They work for companies, invest in pensions, and call it safety. But Rich Dad's advice was simple. Build your own business. That doesn't always mean quitting your job. It means starting your own asset column. It could be a side hustle, a small investment, a rental property, or even intellectual property. The point is, while you work for others, your money should be quietly working for you. 9. The need for financial independence. Ultimately, Rich Dad, Poor Dad isn't just about getting rich. It's about achieving freedom. Freedom from debt, freedom from fear, freedom from the endless cycle of trading time for money. It's about reclaiming the one resource we can never earn back, time. Because when money works for you, life becomes about choice. And that's the truest form of wealth. Final reflection, the real lesson of two fathers. As I close this story, I find myself thinking about those two fathers. One who followed the path of logic and education, and one who followed the path of curiosity and courage. Neither was completely right or wrong, but one taught how to survive, and the other how to live. Robert Kiyosaki reminds us that wealth begins not in the wallet, but in the mind. And the greatest asset any of us can own is the ability to think independently, to question, to learn, and to take control of our own story. Because in the end, money doesn't make us free. Understanding does.